So it's a little sad to think that we only have 2 more weeks where we can watch this Mappa goodness, but on the brighter side, at least Mappa does have another project that will be airing on Mondays next season, but still, Dororo is coming to a close, but it does feel like a very fitting close. I really enjoyed this episode because it had such an unexpected but very logical twist of what if the 12th demon gave the person who didn't have an eye, Hyakkimaru's eyes, and the people who don't have limbs anymore, Hyakkimaru's limbs. And that was an unexpected, brutal, and holy hell savage twist that I'm really excited to see where it's going to go, because it's going to be a very brutal and very violent fight next week for sure. Something I do want to touch upon, which I know I've touched upon this plenty of times throughout these reviews, but I think it is incredibly important to once again highlight what's truly going on with this story, because I think a lot of people are looking at it through a tunnel vision where what's actually happening here, even though it has demons, isn't all that different from pretty much every leader in pretty much every country throughout history. Basically, for everyone's happiness that you see in different countries, or even the suffering that people will experience, it's always due to a leader doing something in an underhanded way. Behind closed doors, every government, even with modern governments, are still doing horrible things to other countries and other people for the benefit of their own. And unfortunately, that's what gives most of us our daily lives, that we can be happy and not suffer. Ultimately, demons are just a metaphor for all the underhanded measures that pretty much every leader throughout history, both in the past and currently, are doing to others for their own benefit. It's not good, it's not justified, but ultimately that's what's happened. If you replace demons with weapons of mass destruction, it's kind of the same thing. Even sacrificing your infant son to demons, that's literally happened in the name of religion throughout history. This is all stuff that's either happened in the past or is happening to this day, and it doesn't justify Daigo's action. You're not supposed to like the guy, but he's no different than pretty much every leader throughout history who do things that are absolutely horrendous, but typically you don't see those horrendous actions because you don't get to see it from two sides' perspectives. But because we're watching Dororo, where you get to see it from the person literally affected by this curse, and also the one who kind of inflicted it, you get a very interesting, morally conflicting story. And you're not supposed to like Daigo, but you are supposed to say he's not really that different from pretty much every leader in history, and that's not supposed to excuse his actions, but you're supposed to question, should his people's lives suffer in the consequence? I've seen some people say, well, with his land prospering, other countries will suffer. That's also no different from current modern civilization. Sure, we have quote-unquote rules of war, but there are still people bombing other nations in justification of protecting your own land. There's never been a point in history where another land didn't suffer at the cost of another basically thriving. And that's what I love about this story, is how just morally complex it is, but I thought it was important to highlight that, because I'm still seeing a lot of people say things like, you know, other lands are hurting because of his, and it's like, there's no difference in your own country at this moment. This episode, though, was a very interesting one because of how much they hit on that I wasn't expecting, especially with Hyakkimaru's mother. I actually thought this was a really interesting balance, because it's not surprising that she freed Dororo. That's kind of in her motherly character, but it's interesting how she's justified what's happened, because ultimately what she's done as a lord's wife she doesn't regret, and I do believe that. I do believe what ultimately happened is what a lord's wife had to do, given the circumstances, but it doesn't mean that a mother can't feel guilt and regret and wishes for salvation, whether that be her son killing her or her son hugging her and forgiving her. And I thought it was a really nice moment, because we have someone such as Dororo who basically misses her mother. There's been plenty of female figures throughout the show that she's just wanted that mother's embrace because her mother was taken from her far too soon. And in the middle of basically hiding Dororo, we get a very sweet moment of just that innocent child. It's easy to forget how young Dororo is, but moments like those, it not only just shows just how much she misses that motherly figure, but also how much of a mother this woman is, even though we started to paint her in a villainous spotlight because she abandoned her child. And I really like that, especially because she abandons her post to find Hyakkimaru, whether that be for her death or her salvation, and I like how it ultimately lets her be a mother again, not a lord's wife, but someone helping the sick and just showing that maybe there's two sides to every coin. Not to mention the people who have had their villages burned down, their goods taken for this war. I like how it's starting to be painted as like, look at what Daigo did, he's such a horrible person, but even some of the villagers are saying there's nothing malicious with that. What he did, he thought would protect his land, and that's the time of war, especially for this historical setting. that's ultimately what happened. When you're gearing up for war, you take all of the supplies, you take all of the manpower, because ultimately, if your kingdom falls, it doesn't matter if your village has food to survive on, because you'll be burned alive after they break through our forces. This is ultimately what every leader did, especially in this time period. And I like how they're not painting Dago as like someone who's like, murdering his villagers. More of he's trying to stop plagues from spreading, which is what happened in the past before real modern medicine, and also taking the manpower in order to fight the forces that are coming alongside you. Throughout this story, it's always been built up that Hyakkimaru could easily be lost in a demonic rage. Ever since Mioe's death, we've seen glimpses of his anger, and with him losing Dororo, thinking Dororo is gone, not to mention just seeing everything that's been happening to him, he's pretty much become the demon that he's hunted. And the fact that this war horse became a ghoul and he is riding on him, not only is it badass, but it's also pretty frightening. There's always a time and a place for shifting up the animation and art style, and this is one of those places where they should. Essentially, Hyakkimaru has become a demon. Even though he's not full-on demon, he definitely has that demonic rage. And what they ultimately did in this episode is they made the overall just animation and artwork very abstract, very loose, and just wild. And it actually allowed for him to not feel human. The way he was moving his arms, slashing and just brutally killing, it didn't feel like a human hunting down other humans. It felt like a demon, a monster, something unworldly killing innocent humans. And I like that because it just made it feel like it was so unworldly and that Hyakkimaru truly had changed, and it really allowed for that interesting perspective shift to make it feel so goddamn disorienting. And I really loved how it looked. I just thought not only was it badass just seeing him ride on that war horse, it was also pretty terrifying to see what our lovable main character has become, and seeing that his body parts were given to another, I think that just pushed them even more to the deep end of becoming what it was that he was hunting. There's a lot of interesting pieces at play with this story. I love how, you have characters trying to sell themselves for the deal, but the only thing that will keep that deal active is Hyakkimaru's body. However, that demon also recognizes that, hey, I could give these body parts to the people trying to kill the person that I want to eat. There's holy shit, some interesting things at play, but I love how they're never trying to paint one side as right or wrong, which is what I think needs to happen. Of course, a lot of the people watching this anime will view Hyakkimaru as the only side that's justified, but like I mentioned with Times of War, there's always two perspectives to everything that's happening. There's never been a leader throughout history that truly hasn't done things that were quote-unquote evil in order to make their side pretty much prosper. This is such a complex tale that I think Mappa's talents have really shined the most with this series. There's some personal stories throughout this show that just feel so just impactful, so interesting and complex that I think for Mappa, this is one of their all-star shows, something that really highlights their team and just what they can do. They really brought to life a story from the past in such an interesting way, while not only just fleshing out the content and making it more just impactful, more fleshed out and meaty, they also added in their own twist to make something feel so different than what you're typically used to seeing. There recently was an article with the Code Geass director, and he mentioned how in today's climate, he wouldn't be able to make something like Code Geass anymore. Because for the most part, production committees and things like that, they want things to feel happy, they want things to feel like, they're making the fandom feel good about themselves. And ultimately with the politics and just the themes that Code Geass went for, he wouldn't be able to do that anymore. Because unless the studio themselves are on the production committee, and unless they are able to fund things themselves, typically they won't be able to do things like that. Mappa is such a big studio and it has such original ideas, and it kind of explains why there's so few Mappas in the world. But Mappa is a studio that is going against the norm of what modern anime is, bringing back old political stories, bringing up new and interesting ideas, and just reinventing what modern anime can look like and feel like, and you really don't get to see a series like Dororo enough, but that's why we should appreciate Mappa for what they are delivering, going against what production committees and modern anime wants. In every season, there's like 80 shows that get made, but there's only a handful that do something as interesting as Dororo, and I think it's such an interesting way to look at just what that Code Geass director did say, and what we're currently experiencing with Dororo, which you don't get to see enough of, which is why I gush about it and appreciate it so damn much. This was definitely one of the stronger episodes of this series, and I definitely think episodes 23 and 24 will probably be the best of the series. I just think with what they laid out in this episode, with giving his body parts to what now he is going to view as demons, is going to set him off the edge. The battle is going to be brutal and crazy, and what's going to happen when he sees his mother? Will it be a stab to the heart or a hug because of what Dororo will say? There is so many ways that they can go, and I don't know how this series truly wants to end. I definitely feel like Dago's lance is going to fall by the end, but it's more, where is Hyakkimaru going to go? Because at this moment, they could easily destroy not only Dago's lance, but also Hyakkimaru, and who he once was and make him into a demon that gets put down. There's so many ways that they could explore this, and there's no real right or wrong answer for everything that's happening, which is what makes it so interesting. I think they definitely brought the emotions out, while also making it surprisingly interesting and complex all at the same time. For everyone who did watch though this week's episode of Dororo, did you love it? Do you hate your favorite moment? Where you think next week's going to go? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you did enjoy this video, be sure to drop a like and also hit that subscribe button if you haven't been new. So until next time everyone, please take care and have a good one.